want to talk a little bit more about these protests on April 5th, which was this weekend, Saturday. The U.S. witnessed a significant wave of hands-off protests. In fact, I believe that over a month ago, the all call was put out for this protest to happen, with demonstrations in all 50 states. These protests were primarily aimed at opposing President Trump's and Elon Musk's policies, particularly concerning government downsizing, recent tariff implementations. Major cities including Washington, D.C., Chicago, Maryland, even local to my area, there were people that showed up in large numbers with substantial turnouts. D.C. organizers initially anticipated 10,000 people, and estimated crowds were in excess of 100K. Chicago's Daily Plaza were similarly packed, marking one of the city's largest protests since the beginning of Trump's second term. We're not even into the 60th day. I don't believe. Wait a second. Okay, we're in April 7th. Wow. We are past the 60th day, but we're not even in the 90th day. That is ridiculous that he already has a protest. And of course, this is not as big as the George Floyd protest, because black people have not been a part of these. Why? We'll come to that. Notably missing, the Chicago protest proceeded without reports of police aggression, or in most of these protests, by the way. This stands in contrast to the forceful responses observed during the George Floyd protests, which were predominantly led by black activists. The differing police responses raised concerns about racial disparities in law enforcement handling of protests. The predominantly white composition of the recent demonstrations may have influenced the most restrained police approach, highlighting ongoing issues of systemic bias in crowd management tactics. I mean, it's not no surprise. There has been a historic disproportionate handling in how police have dealt with crowds. The J6ers, let's be real. If black crowds were acting like knuckle draggers, climbing up walls like monkeys, like those knuckle draggers were on J6 were, they would have been shot, arrested, and done all kinds of things. They wouldn't have waited for cops to be killed, beat over the head with clubs, brought a guillotine in there and all that other crazy stuff, breaking down windows and messing up the Capitol. No, they wouldn't. In fact, why do I know this? Because the prior year, under Trump, they had police in riot gear for a peaceful protest with Black Lives Matter, where the cops beat heads, beat bodies. We see ya, America KKK, KKK, KKK. We see ya. So, within the protest movements, there have been observations of activities that some participants found trivializing as well. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. This is another reason why black and brown people, specifically black people, are not really up down with that ally and coalition stuff right now. For instance, suggestions of organizing events like Easter egg hunts during this protest were met with criticism of undermining the gravity of the issue at hand. Like, who says some stupid stuff like that? Either you're a damn troll or you're just unserious. Such incidents have led to frustration among activists, white activists within the ranks, who feel that certain segments of the protest community may not fully grasp the seriousness of the movement's objectives, nor of the moment of what's happening. Do you realize you have a full authoritarian right in the office right now that want to make it the Hunger Games for your booty? Sit up here playing games like it's on some damn Nintendo game box. I tell you, they ain't lied that this school system done failed some of you fools. Easter egg hunt at a protest. Y'all some damn fools. Whoever said that, and if you ever hear this, you a damn fool. Your mama didn't teach you right. Anyway, moving on. The demographic composition of protests has also been a point of discussion, as I said earlier. The limited presence of black activists suggests a possible disconnect or skepticism regarding the commitment and strategies of predominantly white-led protest groups. And we should. There's a perception that these groups may lack the resolve to adopt more assertive measures against authoritarian policies and might inadvertently rely on black activists to bear the brunt of confrontational actions. And we're not. This dynamic underscores the need for more inclusive and representation leadership within the protest movements to ensure the concerns and strategies reflective of the diversity of the communities affected by the policies being protested. In other words, we want leadership so we can make sure when we get those politics and those policies passed that they make sure they support what we need. And we don't want to hear that, oh, well, just wait. Black people ain't waiting no more. How about that? We're not waiting no more. Nah, not no more. In addition to the hands-off protests, Washington, D.C. hosted a separate rally focused on opposing U.S. support for Israel's actions in Gaza, drawing thousands of participants, yet a smaller protest, but still a substantial size. While both protests address significant human rights concerns, their separation highlights a recurring challenge within activist circles: the fragmentation of the movements. By organizing parallel events rather than unified demonstration, the collective impact may be diluted, and the opportunity present a consolidated front against intersecting injustices could have been missed. This division may inadvertently project an image of disunity and reduce the overall efficacy of advocacy efforts. And so this is why the right is able to constantly split the left, the liberals, and the moderates. It's just right there. And so I don't know what can be solved there, but I just think there's a constant strategic issue with the leftists. I think they want to be more performative and be on some type of moral high ground. And the thing is that there needs to be some common ground. And I also believe that the liberals and the moderates somehow believe that they're divisive. And you know what? The leftists are divisive. I'm going to put it out there. They're absolutely divisive. But you guys are both going to have to find a way to coexist because you're getting nowhere without each other. You're just getting nowhere without each other. And that's just it. And you're allowing an evil, evil right to continue to allow you to splinter. And so y'all are going to have to learn how to compromise. And if compromise is not going to be in your voice, you're going to continue to take more and more of this evil shit. You hear me? So the recent protests underscore a vibrant engagement with pressing political social issues. And it's good to see that happen. I mean, because there hasn't been a lot happen. It seems like it's been forever, and it's not even been 90 days, but it was good to see that there was something out there. But there needs to be more. A protest with this type of really super bad policy is not enough. However, they also reveal underlying challenges related to racial dynamics yet again. Yet again. And let me just elucidate before I go on about the racial dynamics. It's not just about the racial dynamics in terms of the leadership, but it's the policy. It cannot be white-led. It cannot be white-led. And it cannot be black-led with white control behind it. Did you hear me? It cannot be black-led with white control behind it. It is why black people are turning off. So that's what I got to say about that. The seriousness of the protest activities, inclusivity, and strategic unity that must continue to find ways to happen is one thing that should come from this weekend's events on April 5th. And they need to find more ways to find unity and to be more inclusive, because that is the only way forward. Addressing these internal critiques is essential for building more effective and representative movements capable of enacting meaningful change. Meaningful change. So, moving on, this administration, in breakneck speed, has done a PR blitz. I mean, that's the only thing they can do. He has doubled on social media. He said, "Hang tough. This economic revolution, we will win." That's all he's doing. He's marketing. He's marketing this disinformation. But behind the bombast, real fractures are forming even in the right. 7 Republican senators just signed on legislation aimed at checking Trump's trade authority. One of the signers, Elon Musk himself, well, he can't sign, now publicly criticizing the tariff strategy he once supported. Isn't that crazy? Because it's hurting him. Because Trump has went directly at China. China. So what are we witnessing here? A bunch of selfish-ass people. A calculated economic revolution, or is it unraveling, that could send working families, small businesses, and fragile global alliances over the edge. Because you remember in the last report, I talked about how it's going to impact the supply chains, it's going to raise the cost of items, big ticket items, on Americans all over. I mean, from food to housing to automobiles to just about everything. And it's initially going to make the dollar very valuable, but eventually the dollar is going to be worth shit because nobody's going to entertain it. Because what's going to happen, like, I'll give you a quick analogy on this. What's going to happen? Now the soybean market is the shit because they had contracts with, say, multiple places in the world. Well, now that Trump has cut that off, the world has gotten together, and I say the world, like Europe, has created a coalition with Canada and with other parts, and now they're going to create another coalition to create a new supply chain to those areas with soybeans. So now, by the time there's another negotiation, they will lock out those farmers, and guess what's going to happen? They're going to go belly up. Even farmers are now, who supported and voted for Trump, are saying that the next generation of farmers are probably going to be lost. Oh well, no thoughts or prayers. Sorry about your white tears. Oh, and I have to say they're mostly white tears because the reality is this stuff was predicted. I mean, policy is just policy. People have to take this partisanship out of this stuff and stop trying to play this racial stuff against people and just look at the policy. The policy is just what it is. The economy and the numbers are what they are. So, moving on, I just want to have a really good announcement here. Yet again. This was a really good one. Hold on. Let me get this lined up. Democrats win in Wisconsin court race. Also a big loss to Elon Musk. So Muskrat went to Wisconsin a couple weeks or a week or so before this election a couple weeks ago. And he laid down like 25 to 30 million on this race, giving out checks like Oprah Winfrey. You get a check, you get a check, you get a check, a millionaire. And even one of the $1 million winners did a video saying she got $1 million to vote for the other guy, for the opponent. That's crazy. That's against the law. Elon Musk should be deported and must be deported when this is all over. He must be deported or sent to Gulag, one or the other. And I know there's no Gulag in America, but there should be one. Maybe Guantanamo Bay is the Gulag. I don't know. But in either case, long story short, he lost big and big time. So I'm going to read some of this AP article. Billionaire Elon Musk has helped Donald Trump abruptly change the federal government in the opening weeks of this year. But he's learned he can't change the laws of political gravity. Musk has affiliated groups sunk 21 to 25 million into flipping the Wisconsin Supreme Court to conservative control, only to see his candidate defeated by 10 percentage points on this past Tuesday. Not this past Tuesday, but this past Tuesday. The losing margin was 4 points larger than that of the only other Republican of the same statewide ballot, who was not tied to Musk's money. Wearing a cheesehead, looking like a dumbhead, Republican had long been pessimistic about the odds of picking up the seat because the Democrats' educated coalition had turned out heavily in relatively obscure elections such as the Wisconsin one. And so it goes on to say a lot of different things. They also won the superintendent of the state's race, which I think they won that race by 7 points as well. Susan Crawford, the Dane County judge who won Tuesday's race, made Musk the force of their arguments by preserving liberals' advantage 4-3 as a majority after the separate liberal judge retired. Now, what's important about this, from what I hear through the grapevine, they were going at Musk for doing illegal stuff in Wisconsin, which is why he really wanted to buy this position. So, Susan Crawford said, today Wisconsinites fended off an unprecedented attack, on our democracy, our fair elections, and our Supreme Court. And Wisconsin stood up and said loudly that justice does not have a price and our courts are not for sale. So this was a first major victory. she also quoted Thurgood Marshall by saying, "We must dissent because America can do better." And she said some really other really great things. But what's important about this win was that she also said one other thing, that she never thought she would grow up to go against the richest man and beat him. And I thought that was really actually kind of good, because you really never see these judges, but we should see them because we should be voting for all of them, because they really have a massive impact on our lives in a lot more ways than we think, in ruling on a lot of different things, from elections to voting to our finances, to housing, and all kinds of other different things in our life. On other notes, in the Florida elections, they came in a lot closer than people thought. They were slashed by half. And so the Democrats did nothing to try to capitalize on those elections, and had they done anything, they probably could have actually taken those seats. But I mean, they had to put in some raw investment over time, and I'm not sure that the Democrats are really about that life. And I'm being honest, just like District 1, they had this big turnout for this protest this past weekend. So a lot of people are talking, about, because they're really mad at Andy Harris, as they should be, because he's awful. I mean, he's doing nothing for the district that I reside in. And so they're talking about, oh man, he can be beaten, he can be defeated. And he can be defeated, but he cannot be defeated based on a lack of strategy and in a lack of grassroots investment over a long period of time. And so what has happened since I've gotten in the game in 2018, we put in some grassroots advocacy, and I did it from 2018 on to 2022. And I am not doing anything without getting paid, pay me F you. And so the thing is that they had several candidates that got paid but did not take that pay and invested it in the infrastructure. And so the thing is that 60K votes may sound good, but it's not enough to win. And it's not a significant investment. And so we need to be realistic about what we need to do. And there's one other thing, and I'm just going to put it out there. The General Assembly purposely screwed certain voters in District 1 to ensure that our votes are suppressed and oppressed. Let me say that again. The General Assembly purposely suppressed and oppressed, in my opinion, certain voters in District 1 to ensure that our votes are suppressed and oppressed. And we should be working on that end to ensure that, much like what Zalega, Chatty Cathy did, that it doesn't happen anymore. So that would be my suggestion. Moving further into the courts. So while Trump wages a tariff war, because that's what he's really into, and some people say it's a negotiation, and you know what? That might be in his mind a negotiation, and you know what? I can't say he will or will not win, because a lot of people seem to be on the ropes or whatever, what have you. But I don't think he is going to win. I really believe that a lot of these states, these countries, are going to find other ways to navigate around it, and just, because it's a global market. And if America wants to be protectionist, they'll just find a way to just excess out of the market. So anyway, while Trump wages a tariff war, the courts are quietly clashing with his immigration policies. A federal judge just ordered the return of wrongly deported immigrant from Maryland. But the Trump administration isn't backing down. They want to go straight up to the Supreme Court to block that return, even though they know they're wrong. Like, they don't care that they're wrong. They want to continue to be wrong. Think about that. A man was wrongly deported to El Salvador, nonetheless. And now the president is fighting to keep him out. There is no justice. I mean, this is why I have a problem. he will continue to fight until there is no end to put it in this disparate information mill that this person is a criminal, even though he's not. But we don't see no white faces going down, huh? And in Texas, a heartbreaking headline. RFK made a visit to the state in its first and confirmed measles-related child death in years. The death comes amid rising vaccine skepticism, some of fueled by RFK himself, and some of the policies fueled by RFK himself with all them random and arbitrary firings where he's actually had to rehire, but the people he's rehired are actually on leave. So I guess it's not functioning anyway. And there has been a second one I heard report as well. Very sad stuff. So let's talk about some taxes in Maryland, because it's really come to a very important part where the rubber hits the road. And when I say the rubber hits the road, Larry Hogan clearly wants to run again. He has been writing a whole lot of posts about Maryland under that Governor Larry Hogan post. And, he came off the last time he ran for Senate, which was last year. It seems like forever, but it was last year. That he was independent. But we come to realize that Larry was not independent. Oh, geez, surprise to me. He was never independent. He was always a Republican. But he was just light. Not light in weight. He's a knuckle dragger, too. But anyway, he's been really pushing that this deficit of $5.1 billion exists, and that he had good governance, and that he eliminated it a year and cut tolls and taxes and fees. He didn't mention that he cut people's jobs and their pensions and all that other stuff, and that he defunded the government. You know what defunding is? They had a problem when activists talked about defunding the police, but he didn't have a problem defunding the government. That means making it completely inoperable. And so when Governor Wes Moore came in and made it operable, because it needed to be operable, then it's problematic. And so they're talking about these surpluses. Well, first thing, they were never surpluses. They were COVID surpluses made by President Biden. President Biden sent monies to Maryland for certain programs. And it would have actually even been more. I have to talk about this because Larry Hogan's is such a scab piece of trash, piece of shit. President Biden has sent $4.9 billion for a transit project in Baltimore. It's called the Red Line, which was necessary to go from one end of Baltimore to the other end. It would have transformed black lives predominantly in Baltimore because mostly black people live in Baltimore. Larry Hogan sent that money back to the feds. That would have been a fully paid for and functioning project. And he sent all those monies back to the feds to harm black people. So fuck you, Larry Hogan. Fuck you to hell, you knuckle-dragging piece of shit. And so that's what I feel about you. That's what I feel about you. You never had any surplus. You're just a piece of wind. And the thing about it is that you were always performative. Always. And so let's keep it a buck. Hogan didn't leave Maryland in some magical surplus. He defunded the government, underfunded critical services, left gaps that were temporarily masked by massive federal COVID relief funds. That's not good governance. That's cooking the books. That's juicing them. Now, folks are surprised that the bill has come due with a deficit now? Really? The deficits come from underfunded laws that have been on the books, revenue gaps. See, Hogan never took the time to ever gain revenue. He just defunded, which could be addressed by closing corporate tax loops. Because let's be real, some of the biggest of these big money corporations are out there paying little to nothing in taxes, Larry Hogan. But instead of addressing that, the General Assembly and Larry Hogan went with a different approach, which was not to do that. The Trump regime straight up refused to fund key federal obligations like infrastructure, such as the Key Bridge, which is a big part of this deficit. That means Maryland has to foot the bill for things that should have been federally covered. Federally covered. We pay these taxes. It should be federally covered. People like Hogan are running our housing market because he's one of the biggest housing real estate owners in Maryland. Completely unregulated in a lot of ways. Okay? Because he's one of the biggest real estate owners and he's been juicing the market for personal gain. Oh, and let's talk about how he forgave his own PPE loans. Okay? Oh, and let's talk about taking taxpayer money while letting Maryland's working class struggle. That alone should ensure he never access another public seat again. That was just outright criminal. And let's just talk about everything he talks about is rooted in partisanship. Excuse me. I'm all jacked up here. Larry created a highway tax scam by expanding the lanes. That's all he did. That was his revenue share. Every time you see an easy pass, no, that's a tax scam that Hogan created. Everything he's done been performative. He is a scab, a scab, a scab, and a lump of shit. And that's all I gotta say. So, let me move past Larry Hogan. Otherwise, I'm just going to lose it with him. I'm just going to continue to lose it. I'm just going to continue to lose it. I'm done with him. I'm done with him. And Maryland should be done with him. Maryland should never, ever put him back in. So back to Maryland. A drama of another kind unfolded because they were having some, budgetary issues that they were addressing, like I said, with that. So lawmakers finally reached a deal on the state budget. Billions of cuts, $1.6 billion in new taxes, and limits to the Child Victim Act passed quietly over this weekend. A lot of the Child Victim Act advocates were very upset with that. I have not heard the reasoning on why there was a limit on that. It matters because survivors of abuse were promised time to seek justice. These new limits may have just shut the window for many. A lot of people very upset about that. And honestly, I have to do some more research on that. Let me see here. What else here? Because I know there's something else in here. Criminal records. Many more state residents will be able to expunge criminal records after completing their sentence. The measure would also require the state to automatically shield records from public view for roughly 175,000 people who were pardoned by the governor last year for minor cannabis convictions. Slavery Reparations Commission would study and recommend potential reparations for slavery and the lingering effects of racial discrimination. I'm going to give a further segment on that in the section. As I was saying with the sex abuse lawsuit, future liabilities from claims of sexual abuse at state and private institutions will be limited with caps on settlements from $890K to $400K. Cases filed after May 31st for state institutions, and from $1.5 million to $700K for private institutions. A measure passed by lawmakers also charged the 2023 Child Victims Act to only allow each claimant to receive one payment instead of being able to collect for each incident of abuse. That's really devastating. I'm not sure why that happened. I would definitely need to hear what's that going on with that. Sentencing, second look at. People convicted of a crime between the ages of 18 and 25 who have served 20 years or more of prison sentence would be able to petition for a reduction of sentence if they had been sentenced to life without a possibility of parole or a sex offender. The bill does not apply to offenders convicted of killing first responders. I'm not sure why first responders were the only caveat. And I understand why you shouldn't kill first responders, but I also think that they're possibly, if they're 18 and 25, I believe that the reason why that they're allowing that exemption is because you're very spontaneous at that age. And I think probably there should have been an exemption for all types of killings, because there could be any, in other words, each situation could create a different reason. There was a situation in, and I can't remember, because when I was on that policing work group, we had read where a criminal, or a convict, excuse me, was a child. I believe they were 16 years old and was convicted as an adult. And they were led by an adult to create that crime. They were intimidated, bullied into the crime. So they weren't, in other words, they did not plan the crime. It wasn't something they did. So every situation, I think, really should be viewed individually. And that's just my opinion. Health care for young adults. Lawmakers approved a measure that make permanent a program that subsidizes to help young adults get affordable health insurance. That's good. Considering the attacks at the federal level, that is really good. And that's something part of my medical debt and healthcare coalition that I'm a part of. Abortion funding. The Maryland Department of Health would have access to $25 million for abortion grant program to help providers pay costs for uninsured. The money comes from part of the Federal Affordable Care Act that has collected fees from insurers to pay for abortion services for their policyholders. Okay. That probably could be commandeered with our governor being on the governor's board, which is a good thing. Lawmakers closed a big budget deficit with those cuts, like I said, with the tax increases. The House and Senate negotiators reconciled the differences. Let's see here. The budget includes a new 3% tax information technology services. It includes 2 new tax brackets for high-income residents. One for people who make over $500,000 annually. Another for those who with more than $1 million in annual income. So really, it sounds like the mass majority who don't make over $500,000, which is the mass majority. There's also new 2% on capital gains for people with income over $350K, as well as tax hikes on recreational cannabis and sports wagering. The total budget is about $67 billion. And so it seems to be, wow. Okay, that seems to be the wrap up with that. With the Maryland tax hikes. Meanwhile, Republicans in D.C. are still at odds. Some are still chasing some of those Trump tax era cuts, even if the math is not mathing and not adding up. It's like watching a machine run into its rails. Policy pushed for headlines, not results. So now we're getting into the real nuts and bolts of things. I mean, we have been in the most. I mean, this is a great report. I really enjoyed it. Maryland reparations bill has inched forward, and Governor Moore dodges the question. I don't know if Wes wants to really win. He needs to stop listening to those white advisors. Them kids be coming out of college, don't know how to advise. Wes, you need to call somebody who's really going to help you. You know my number. Call me if you want to really understand how to win, because they're not advising you. You don't need to dodge any questions, buddy. So let me get in on this reparations thing. A Maryland bill proposing the establishment of a commission, which actually passed. I'm reading from a report. Senate Minority Whip Justin Reddy, Republican of Carroll and Frederick counties, told Spotlight on Maryland he's confused as the widest bill is being advanced as the state faces a historic deficit. Clearly, that's all for politics, and I'm getting inboxes at the same time I'm talking, which is forecasted to balloon to $6.7 billion by fiscal year 2028. He said, end quote, "We don't have the money right now to be exploring these options, period. The issue of reparations, I'm sure, elicits strong opinion, but the fact it's just not something that's not financially feasible, whether you think it's a good idea or not," end quote. All right, Justin Reddy, I gotta say something to you. I gotta say something. I got to say something to you, Justin Reddy. There will never be a time when you are ready to pay reparations to black people. You want me to say that again? There will never be a time that you will be ready to pay reparations to black people, nor will there ever be money that you will ever set aside for that debt. And so, F you. That's the best way I can say. So, that's all I can say. It's time. It's been past time. It's time. Harriet had been in her grave for over almost 200 years. It's time. And this was pushed by the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. And then he was talking about Justin Reddy. The question of whether using taxpayer money would ever be appropriate in the context. Even going back when reparations were paid to the survivors of the Holocaust, they went after companies that were involved, not after taxpayers. That's not true. That is absolutely not true. In 2014, taxpayers paid Holocaust reparations. The building of the Holocaust Museum took black taxpayers' money, and black people had nothing to do with the Holocaust. In fact, many of us died in the Holocaust. Although you wouldn't know that because we are rarely even presented in the Holocaust Museum, and it's usually on a special thing that's in there. So BS, Justin Reddy. I know you like to put out that disinformation and lies. Similar reparations commissions have been established by state assemblies in California, Colorado, Massachusetts, New York, and Illinois. In 2040, California Reparations Task Force released a report exceeding 11,000 pages that detailed its findings after a 2-year study. It called on the state to issue a formal apology for racial injustice and provided financial payouts. The formula that provide eligible recipients up to $1.2 million each. State lawmakers have not taken yet a formal vote to authorize the first payments. And so Wes's statement was, nah, we are going to work with the Maryland General Assembly on a whole collection of different issues. Our focus is economic advancement. Our focus is economic growth. It's making sure we can really meet people where they are, make life more affordable, that we are modernizing our state government. I don't like that statement, but whatever. Like I said, he need to call me and whatever, what have you. So my point with the reparations thing, I really believe we have enough evidence. But they want to take 2 years and make it around election time, I guess, to have this report. This is what I see it as. Now, on paper, it sounds like progress. The Maryland General Assembly has officially established a Reparations Commission. And sure, that sounds like a step in the right direction, but y'all, we've seen this movie before. Maryland has some of the richest, most well-documented African-American history in the country, period. This is the home of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, the birthplace of Thurgood Marshall. This is a state where black children were locked out of quality education for decades. In fact, the county that I'm in is the last county that allowed integration. Okay, my aunt and my uncles were riding in what they call what they call them trucks. Those geez, I can't remember what she called them. But in either case, they had no windows. They weren't even school buses. And she's still living. Where redlining wasn't just a practice, it was a policy. It still exists. Where people were taxed, fined, criminalized, and displaced by design. It still exists. It exists in my county today. It's not just a Baltimore policy. It exists right here in my county today in Hartford. And yet, with all the documented harm, with receipts literally baked in the bricks of Annapolis, they've chosen to start with a commission. One with the power brokers. Yes, those folks get to appoint the members. The same insiders, the same organizations, the same folks who already got theirs and protect the people who do the bullet. Now, if this feels familiar, that's because it is. This is the same Maryland legislator that slow-walked the Kerwin Commission on education for years, claiming that it was too expensive to fix what they had broken in the black communities. They let inequity marinate, then drop the 200-page omnibus like it was a gift. I'm not fooled. We're not fooled. So here it is again, this commission, real. Or is it another delay tactic meant to look like a bold policy while actually buying time until the next, 26th election cycle? If you're serious about repair, you don't stack your commission with political loyalists and corporate-friendly NGOs. You bring in grassroots advisors, community organizers, policy experts who have been doing this work without a title, without a salary, without a camera crew. Okay? You center the people who carry the harm, not the ones who benefit from the silence around it. I'm going to inquire to see if I can be a part of this commission. But let's be honest, these appointments, they're often set aside for the gatekeepers, not the truth tellers, not the truth tellers, not the truth tellers, but for the boule, not the people, for the proximity, for the power, not for those who challenge it, not for those who challenge it. And before folks come for us with just give it a chance, let's not forget that California still has not voted on the payments. You know, they had the task force, and much of it has been symbolic. We don't want just an apology. We want our money. All right? The ones still living with the compounded harm, disinvestment, violence, and generational theft walked away with nothing right now but broken promises. A bill of recommendations that ain't moved in the legislature. So, yes, we hope that the Maryland Reparations Commission is a real thing. I do. We hope it centers justice, not political cover. But we will not sit quietly while the state tries to run the clock down. This isn't about symbolism. It's about setting a real, tangible debt, settling it. One that's been compounding, since 1619, and showing up in zip codes, schools, jails, generational bank accounts ever since. And I'll keep watching. We'll all keep watching. We'll keep pushing. And we'll keep naming names if necessary. Because Black Maryland doesn't need another round of research. We need repair. We need repair. We need our reparations. And we don't want our 40 acres and a mule. We want our money. Everything's transactional. You hear me? You heard. So, these are my closing thoughts. So where we at? Tariffs called medicine. Markets collapsing. Immigrants trapped in places like Salvador, wrongly sent there. Children dying of measles. Preventable outbreaks. Budgets balanced on the backs of survivors. This isn't just politics. It's a pattern of abuse. America is a pattern of abuse. Maryland is a pattern of abuse. A blueprint of how policy, power, profit intersect, and who they serve. So this has been your BNP number 4. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and stay tuned for our next segment. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot from it. Because the revolution is not about that march or any other march or any other protest. It's about being informed, staying grounded, staying focused, and being ready to go in on it. Because it's us. It's about us. It is about us. Because it's not about surviving just another day. It's about us thriving in this capitalistic society. We can no longer just survive. We need to thrive. And this is the time that we're going to thrive through these type of informed podcasts. Find 10 friends, find another 10 friends, and another 10 friends. We are just getting started with BNP. My name is Saria Ben. Donate at Cash App or Venmo, Team Ben, T-E-A-M Ben, T-E-A-M Ben. Again, follow us, Beats and Politics, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the week of April 7th, 2025.